Assalamu alaikum, 50 graders. Our lesson today is talking about what is the role of an organism in its ecosystem. This is the first part of this lesson. First of all, we have to identify the parts of an ecosystem. An ecosystem is made up of biotic and abiotic factors interact with each other. If you still remember, we mentioned before that biotic factors are living things and abiotic factors are non-living things. Some biotic factors of an ecosystem are plants, like trees, flowers, and grasses. Other biotic factors are animals, like birds, insects, and humans, which are considered as a kind of animals. Now we want to mention the abiotic factors of an ecosystem. The abiotic factors of an ecosystem include water, sunlight, soil, rocks, minerals, and air. All biotic factors in an ecosystem depend on each other. Biotic factors also depend on abiotic factors around them. As we mentioned in the definition of an ecosystem, biotic factors and abiotic factors interact with each other. This means that biotic factors depend on abiotic factors that are found around them. All the parts work together to keep the ecosystem in balance. All living things have a role. Role means a work or a job or a function. So all living things, which are the biotic factors, have a role in the ecosystem. This role is called niche. The niche of the living thing depends on how it lives and how it gets its own food. So, as you see in this figure, the hawk is a predator and the mouse is a prey. So the niche of the hawk is predator and the niche of the mouse is a prey. We want to talk about producers, consumers, and decomposers. All the food energy on Earth comes from the sun. Without the sun, every living thing on Earth would go hungry and would not survive. All biotic factors are divided into three main groups: producers, consumers, and decomposers. So here, if you still remember, we mentioned before that all biotic factors need energy to survive. This energy, the main source of it, is the sun. Then these biotic factors depend on each other to get energy from each other. According to the niche of living things, they are classified into three main groups: producers, consumers, and decomposers. Now we are going to talk about producers. Producers come from the verb produce, which means to make. So plants are called producers because they use the energy in sunlight to make or produce their own food. So producers are living things that make or produce their own food using the energy from the sunlight. These producers are the plants. So producers, which are plants, use energy from sunlight, water and nutrients from the soil, and carbon dioxide from the air to make their own food. Did you know that producers give us oxygen to breathe? When producers use the energy from the sunlight to make food, they give off oxygen that puts oxygen we need into the air. This is called photosynthesis. So, this process in which plants or producers make their own food is called photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the process in which plants or producers use energy from sunlight, carbon dioxide from the air, water and nutrients from the soil to make their own food, and they produce oxygen in this process, which is called photosynthesis. Now we will talk about consumers. Animals, including people, cannot produce their own food. So animals, including people, are not producers because they cannot produce their own food. They cannot produce food from sunlight as plants can. The word consumer means to eat. So consumers are organisms that get energy from consuming or eating other organisms. When you eat a food, you consume it. So again, a consumer is a living thing or an organism that gets energy by eating or consuming other organisms. Now we are going to talk about decomposers. The word decomposers comes from the verb decompose. Decompose means to break down into smaller pieces. So, decomposer is a living thing that gets energy by breaking down or decomposing material from dead bodies of humans, plants, and animals. So, decomposers, their niche is to decompose the dead bodies of humans, plants, and animals. Decomposers break the material down into tiny pieces that become part of the soil. They add nutrients to the soil. Nutrients are things that help plants grow. Bacteria, molds, and some mushrooms are decomposers. So again, decomposers break the material down into tiny pieces which become part of the soil. They add nutrients to the soil. These nutrients are necessary for the plants to grow. Decomposers are like bacteria, molds, and some mushrooms. Here we have some examples of decomposers. This is the bacteria, mushroom, and molds. These are decomposers which decompose material down into tiny pieces that become part of the soil. They add nutrients to the soil which is necessary for the plants to grow.